So our next speaker is a Microsoft MVP in artificial intelligence and a Microsoft certified trainer and a data analytic and AI consultant with over 20 years of experience. Please welcome Anupama Natarajan. Over to you, Anupama.
Thank you, and welcome everyone for the Dev Day 2021. And it is nice to see a developer conference and try to mingle with you all and to discuss about a few things. And here I'm going to talk about AI and how artificial intelligence is changing everything. So let me quickly share my slide. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how do we unlock business value using Azure Applied AI Services. I think a lot of you would have been noticed about AI and especially in the Microsoft Azure space in the last few years. And a lot of things are happening and a lot of changes are happening, as you know. So what we are going to look at today is there is a new term called Applied AI Services that was coined early this year at the Build conference. And I'm going to just walk you through what this really means and how is it different from the Azure AI itself, and how do we go about learn a bit more around Applied AI Services. In a nutshell, Applied AI Services is nothing but you are going to go live with AI solutions in a matter of days, not months. So keep that in mind, and that's what pretty much I'm going to focus on. I'm Anupama Natarajan, and thanks for giving me a good introduction. Yes, of course, I'm a data and AI consultant with 20 plus years of experience working in the IT industry. And yes, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a speaker. So the key idea is I do work in real world projects, and I'd always love to share my experience in terms of what I face in my real world scenarios as challenges, so that I can just share it with the community so they can learn from that, and vice versa, because I still learn a lot by attending these type of events. So if you need to reach out to me post this particular session for any questions, clarifications, feel free to use any of my social media channels, and put your questions to me and I will get back to you on that. So what is the agenda for today's session? So we will start with, as I mentioned, what Azure AI is, and what is the Azure AI services or the applied services that we are talking about, and what is this particular 6 services I have highlighted here. So we are going to look into each of these services. What does it offer? Where does it fit in with the applied AI services? And when do you really use the applied AI services? What are the scenarios where you will be using them? And finally, there are some references that will help you to further enhance your knowledge around these topics. And I'll open the forum again for a Q&A session towards the end. So what is Azure AI? So if you look at a lot of modern business processes, everyone wants to automate things, right? So no one wants to just to go with a manual process. And AI has been the buzzword in the last few years in the market. People want to embrace AI in their organizations, but everyone is getting into that struggle around like, okay, how do I start about doing this? Like, do I start with a greenfield project in order to embrace AI in my organization? And what is happening in the Azure AI stack, especially? Why am I getting to see new things that is coming up? And this buzzword, which is Azure Applied AI Services, what does it really mean? So before we get into Azure AI, first thing is why AI is really a buzzword in the market. Because modern business processes, people want to automate a lot of these processes. They want to take solutions into the market as quickly as possible. And if they have like legacy business processes and things which takes ages in order to complete them and get back to their customers, then probably their customers will be in their competitor hands. And that's why a lot of organizations want to modernize their business processes. They want to accelerate their development. So they don't want to wait for months to launch a solution, but they want to launch the solution in days as quickly as possible. And also, like it's not about just launching something, but they also take responsibility of that. So whether you're launching as a machine learning model, or if you're doing prediction based solutions, there should be some evidence or confidence behind that particular prediction. So that is also is getting more and more paramount these days. So that's where Azure AI comes into play in terms of helping organizations, like how can you build applications or your first AI application in your organization confidently, and how can you deploy it anywhere, whether we are talking it here about your business applications or applications running on edge devices. So doesn't matter where we are talking here, like is it in containers, is it on the cloud, is it on premises, so you can bring and use AI capabilities anywhere. The key again requirement is getting started quickly and getting into the market quickly. So Microsoft introduced a lot of services in the Azure AI stack. So one of that is your Azure Cognitive Services. That is, I think it's been there for years now, so everyone should know about it. So Azure Cognitive Services is a set of APIs which Microsoft have published. So you can pretty much hook this API inside an existing application or even in a new application. So it ranges from like your computer vision API, custom vision API, and you can also do like a image recognition in there. You can play with quite a few things like an anomaly detector. So there are quite a few things you can do with the Azure Cognitive Services out of the box. Think about cognitive services is like a pre-built model. You are not going to build any particular machine learning models here. These models are already pre-built and ready for you to integrate within your applications. Then they introduced something called as Azure Machine Learning. So Azure Machine Learning provides you the capability to build custom models. So sometimes like a predefined or pre-built models may not be sufficient to meet your business needs. In this case, you have to go ahead and create your own custom models to meet your needs. And the Azure Machine Learning provides you the tools in order to do that. So AI infrastructure, why cloud is becoming more and more prominent these days? Because when you are dealing with machine learning or AI, you have to deal with a lot of data. You have to train your model with the huge volumes of data, and you need to have really good processing compute power for that. So with cloud, like you can easily like scale up your capacity and scale it down when you don't need it. So that's why like a cloud is becoming more and more prominent for AI based solutions. So we know about all these things, right? Cognitive services, machine learning, AI infrastructure. So what does this new term called Azure Applied AI Services mean? So that's the topic we are going to look into today's session, and we will drill down into that shortly. So Azure Applied AI Services, these are built on top of cognitive services and mainly combining with different technologies to solve business problems. So Microsoft has been introducing AI and the different services in there since 2016. But Applied AI Services is basically making another step forward, and they already made like a pre-built models using cognitive services, making it easy for people to use. But with the Applied AI Services, what Microsoft is taking is taking solving business problems to the next level. So it's not about solving one particular problem, it's solving a business problem to a solution. So as more and more organizations in the recent years, they are accelerating in adopting AI to bring in digital transformation. What they have been discussing with Microsoft is like how can they enable faster application of AI into those common applications without any machine learning expertise. A classic example for that is like under the documents part is your Azure Form Recognizer. So pretty much used to automate your paper-based forms into like into a digital format, and without doing much in terms of like writing code or how do you knowing about how to do things in that space. Then there are a few other things that they have introduced under the or grouped it under the applied AI services. Starting with under the video category, you have the Azure Video Analyzer. Under decision category, you have the Azure Metrics Advisor. Under conversation category, you have the Azure Bot Service. Documents we talked about, which is the Azure Forms Recognizer. Under search category, Azure Cognitive Search. And under accessibility, which is again, notice that point, like accessibility is also being considered when you are implementing AI solutions. And Azure Immersive Reader is one of the solution that Microsoft have got in the AI stack when it comes to accessibility. So what does Azure Applied AI Services really mean? So if you look at under the hood, it comprises of different AI models. So if I start with Azure Cognitive Services, as I mentioned, like the applied AI services is pretty much using the foundation of the Azure Cognitive Services. So you can have it as a fundamental platform where you are going to use the cognitive services as a base for your applied AI services. So what applied AI services gives you is to accelerate your development time and also make sure that your whatever you are producing is compliant with the responsible AI principles. So let us look into a common scenario for AI. So whether businesses of all the kinds, right? Whether you are running a simple shop or a mass manufacturing company, you deal with a lot of documents. And Azure Forms Recognizer is targeting that particular business scenario where you can extract data from forms and images, and then you can just store that structured data, and pretty much you are automating the data entry process. The Forms Recognizer was built using the Cognitive Services OCR capability, and also like the text analytics capability to extract the key and value pairs. So that's quite an interesting way of looking at how does these applied AI services are built over the existing Azure Cognitive Services itself. So let us talk about each and every applied service that we were been discussing. So the first one is the Forms Recognizer. So Forms Recognizer allows you to do recognizing text out of images in two ways. One is you have some pre-built forms and that you can use and to build your custom models. Or the second one is like you can use the Azure Cognitive Services OCR and text analytics capability in order to train a model. And then what you can do is then pretty much you can use that to extract the information. So if I look at it, I will look at two things. One is a general purpose one, and the other one is a scenario specific one. So Azure Forms Recognizer uses pre-built models. So if you think about some of these pre-built models like invoices and sales receipts, business cards, and ID cards like driver's license, passport. So these are some of the things like these are models that you can pre-build and use them. So you upload it, it can extract the text, and pretty much you can use it. But there are some models which are custom models, which you have to build the capability so that it can learn from the forms. A classic thing is if the form is more specific to your organization, sometimes you have to do training of those forms. And you can take as simple as 5 forms to start with to train your documents. And you can do that with labeling or without labeling. So what does it really mean? So you can specifically label in the form and say, this is the customer name, this is where the customer name will be, this is where the invoice number will be, this is where the customer address will be. So you can specifically label them. Or as part of the training itself, like if you're not labeling the forms, then probably Forms Recognizer will automatically locate them and it will train itself and it will recognize your test forms based on that. So let us quickly look at how does Forms Recognizer does that. So what I'm going to do is quickly share with you some simple example in here. So if you look at in this case, here there is a simple Contoso invoice form. So you can see there is an invoice form here. So what cognitive, the forms recognizer gives the capability is it can extract the information out of this particular form and it can provide you in text. So you can see this in plain JSON format too. And each of this text, you can see what is the bounding box for that and also the value. So if you ignore the bounding box stuff, like this is the text we are looking at, and this is what is extracted and has been showcased it to you. So keep that in mind. That is one of the way how you can look at the extraction. So this is what happens when forms recognizer analyzes this form. It can extract the data and provide you this output. So there are different type of forms, as you can see here, which you can train. So these can be specific to an organization where you can train these forms, like at least a minimum of 5 forms to start with, and it can extract the key value pairs. A few other things like some custom forms that you can create. And this is a pre-built receipt. So this is just a typical receipt. So it understood it is a receipt type of form. How does it know? Because there is a common notation on how receipts will be printed. So it can extract that information and provide it to you in a JSON format, which you can automate. Passports. You have the ability to scan your passports, extract the information out of the passports. Especially when the current pandemic scenario, this type of automation is going to be really valuable in terms of to figure out like vaccinated people versus unvaccinated people. Driver's license is another thing. So you can think of like these are some of the examples where there are common forms which can be easily recognized and it can extract and automate your business process. So let me get back to my slides again. So what I showed you is a simple example, right? Like how can you use a forms recognizer in order to just extract information out of some of the commonly used forms, as well as like how can you do that with the help of custom forms. So some forms may not be, it's not a passport or a driver's license, but it can be a custom form specific to your organization. Keep in mind, there should be a minimum of 5 forms that you have to use in that training model process. The next one is the Azure Video Analyzer. So what does this do? Like what is the value that you get out of the video analyzer? So again, the video analyzer is built over the custom vision service. So you have a custom vision service, and what Microsoft have done is like a lot of organizations, they are using the video analyzer to optimize various business processes. So it can capture, it can record, and it can analyze the videos. So key thing here is some organizations, especially like flight people, they have used this video analyzer, and the airlines, what they use is to improve the flight turnaround times. So also they detect it and use for workplace safety reasons. So what video analyzer allows you to do is you can extract value out of the content, but by what you need from that quickly by pretty much analyzing the video and extracting the right information. So if I want to just explain that in a plain way, right, rather than using this business scenario, I think I like to watch YouTube videos a lot, right? So you have a lot of material and you want to just learn more about things. But sometimes some of these YouTube videos are really long. So even these days, like 1 hour videos, sometimes we don't have the patience to sit down for an hour. So we will be more interested in looking at certain topics. So I'm interested in forms recognizer. Is there anything in this video talks about forms recognizer? Can you get me directly to that particular time where it talks about forms recognizer? If that is what the type of thing you're looking for, that's something video analyzer can do it for you. So you can pretty much look for any particular thing and you can directly get in there and start looking at how you can do that. So that's a simple example, but also like you can find a lot of things around from a business scenario perspective. You can analyze the videos and you can find out whether there is any problems that you can do with the proactive like analysis using the video recognizer. Then comes your Azure Metrics Advisor. So again, this is another Azure Applied AI service, mainly used to detect anomalies on a variety of scenarios. So the key part of the metrics analyzer is about its customizability. So I don't know how many of you have used the Azure Monitor. And if you have used Azure Monitor, you know about what I'm talking. So Azure Metrics is like I have got a lot of resources on Azure. So I need to know about like if I'm using a resource like a web application or a database, right? I need to know whether I'm exceeding a number of CPUs or DTUs in there. So then if there is a huge amount of memory spike is happening, I need to know about it. How does Microsoft do that? And how do they make improvements on those two metrics advisor? It's because with AI capability. So what it does is like it collects all the data and it knows like, okay, during this time interval, this is the usage pattern, and if it detects like the usage pattern is changed based on like all of a sudden based on the historical data that has been collected, it is going to alert you and say like, okay, there is a anomaly I have noticed here, and it will help you to address it. So the more recent years, like Microsoft has been using smart detection, which will actually use us the historical data to detect a lot of those anomalies in your data sets. So this is really done by collecting time series data, analyzes the data in the background, identify the anomalies, and automatically send incident alerts. So if you notice this particular one, you can see the usage pattern is normally normal, and all of a sudden the spike happens. Then immediately you can be notified saying, okay, there is some issue here. You need to look at it. And this doesn't look like a normal thing. A lot of people use the metrics advisor these days in order to troubleshoot issues with Azure resources. So behind the scenes, that's what I'm explaining. So you are looking at the UI, and what you're getting to see is like, yes, I can see some metrics being collected, and I'm setting up some alerts, and I get notified when the alert is triggered. But what happens behind the scenes is a lot of machine learning capability is embedded in that, which is actually collecting all the time series data. If you have noticed really clearly, the metrics that are Microsoft are collecting is up to that level minute granularity. At any point in time, you can go back and say like, okay, give me the last 30 days worth of my usage data, especially like the CPU and memory in the granularity of a minute. And you can easily plot that on a graph, and you can see what is the behavior pattern of any particular resources that you have on Azure. Really good resource. And I think if you haven't used a metrics advisor, start using it, and also like try and understand how Microsoft is doing it behind the scenes. So then the other applied service that you have got is the enterprise grade bot development framework, which is the Azure Bot Service. So conversational AI is becoming more and more prominent these days. So I normally talk about my frustrations dealing with a lot of customers or organizations, really, where I'm also a customer, right? So I deal with insurance companies, health companies, and banks. So as a daily customer, I deal with them. So not as just a technology person. And sometimes, like in my busy life, I can't always do my things between 9 to 5. So sometimes I used to think about my paying my insurance premiums in the weekend or even after 6 o'clock. And so it frustrates me as a customer when I jump on the website, I don't have an option to pay, or I can't ring the contact center after 5 p.m., or I can't reach out to them on Saturdays and Sundays. So these are the time I have the time to do my things, but the organization doesn't support that. So think about if you have a chatbot, so which means pretty much you're providing 24/7 support for your customers. And with Azure Bot Service, you can easily enable that capability. And this Azure Applied AI Service, now Bot Service is categorized under that. And what it really allows you to do is you can create a bot and you can expose it to different channels. So what I need is I just need a messenger application, and pretty much whatever messenger application I'm using, I'll be able to communicate with the chatbot assistant. Cool thing about Azure Bot Service is its capability to integrate with other services on Azure like speech, Q&A, language understanding, vision. So these are all the other additional things that you can enhance your bot with. I always like when people make statements saying like it is so easy to create a bot. Not really easy. If you're wearing your technical hat and thinking about like, okay, I can just go and create a bot, publish it, and it is ready. That is the thing. So a lot of design thing has to go in terms of creating a bot. How your users are going to interact. How are you going to make the user experience easy? Because uh, you need to make your conversational AI experience much easy for your end users. They should never think like actually they are conversing with a bot. They should feel like they are actually talking to a person who is responding and understanding their uh, request, what are the questions that they are posting. And also like a cool thing about the bot is it can automate things. For instance, like if a customer has got a question, it can automatically query the different IT systems behind the scenes in order to provide the response. Or if a ticket needs to be raised on behalf of the customer, the bot can able to go ahead and do that. The important thing about Azure Bot Service is the capability that it can integrate with a lot of Azure tools in there. So one thing which I want to just include before I move on to the next slide. So as I said, designing the bot is going to be the important thing and you have to spend a lot of time in there. So how do you make that experience easier? And that's where the bot framework composer comes into play. Bot Framework Composer is a free tool which Microsoft provide in order to design an end-to-end development experience of your bot. So you can pretty much initiate the conversation or design your conversation in the bot using the Bot Composer. And what it allows you to do is like you can start interacting with the bot, get the feedback, and then you can tweak it further. So make sure one of the thing if you are building a chatbot, right? Collect the analytics. So you don't know what type of questions your end users or customers will be asking. If you don't have analytics, there is no mechanism of understanding what type of questions are being asked and how your bot is responding to those questions and whether those questions need to be trained within your bot so that even if it didn't answer this time, in the subsequent times, it will start learning from that process. So keep that note. Analytics plays an important role when you are working with chatbots. So next thing is the Azure Cognitive Search. So we know, like we talked about documents, we talked about the chatbots. Now search plays an important role in any organization. So if you have a website, definitely you will have some sort of search capability in order to look for the different resources you have got. How about you have a search engine that is AI powered? And what is the capabilities that you're going to get? You can search for keywords inside images. So have you ever thought like this is going to happen? Like searching for PDF documents, Word documents, or web pages is what we have been exposed to. But now with the capability of cognitive search, now you can add intelligence to your search where you can search for different languages, you can search for different key phrases and look for different key phrases, search for images, search for text in images and so on. So I want to explain this with a quick example. So let me quickly bring this out. So I don't know how many of you have looked at with the JFK Demo website. So here, like you are actually looking for a keyword and you search for this keyword. And the interesting thing is look at the results that are coming here. So it brings in some tags. And did you notice it is looking for that keyword in text? You can see that in images. So here it recognized this as Oswald, and then it is bringing that information straight away in here because this is the photo of Oswald. and also like a handwritten text, everything. So gone are those days where we were just scanning, looking for information just from a Word document or a spread like a PDF document or something. Now we can go more than that. And that's what the Azure Cognitive Search provides, taking itself. So if you haven't explored cognitive search, one of the thing I would definitely recommend is to go and explore that, because you will get to see a lot of things like what you can add in terms of cognitive capabilities. Just to get back to give you examples, vision, language, and speech. So whether you have got a audio recording, video recording, images, now you can do search capabilities over that information. And this is a fully managed PaaS service, and you don't need to worry about that. Then the next one is the Azure Immersive Reader. What is this used for? So if you think about Azure Immersive Reader, this will help your end users to read and comprehend your documents and books. So this is a turnkey solution which Microsoft provides, where you have got features like you can read aloud statements or like a book or something. You can translate it to different languages. You can focus the attention by highlighting the text using some colors. So as you can see here, you can just keep reading with the voice, and also like you can highlight things using colors. And the main idea about Azure Immersive Reader is to target users of all the ages, and also with people who have got diverse capabilities, for them to understand how to read this information, and also like highlight what is really important in the context of the text. So this particular applied AI service can be used in any vertical. So think about if someone is like a presenter like me who is presenting text content. So you can easily make the content more accessible for your users, and also make it easy for people who actually speak in a different language. So a lot of organizations these days focus more on accessibility, including Microsoft. Any solutions that they are creating, starting from, even I don't know how many of you have noticed in PowerPoint, right? When you do presentations, you can turn on subtitles. So where when the speaker is speaking, you almost get the information like the transcript then and there. So that is another way of looking at it, how these AI capabilities are like digitizing the entire product stack which we have got. So some of the things that you can think of is like, do you want to make your products more inclusive for the people within your market, taking into consideration of people with visual impairments, learning disabilities, or even literary issues? Then consider using Azure Immersive Reader, because this is going to help you in order to provide that usage for them. So I'm going to show you a quick view of this immersive reader example, a demo on that. So I'm not going to play an audio here, but I think one of the things the immersive reader can provide you is to quickly read through a text. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But what here you can do is you can type any text. So you can put any paragraphs of text in here, and then what you can do is you can use that in any languages. So if I want to try this out, so this is going to talk to my microphone. But what it is like pretty much if I start playing, this is going to read this for me. Not only that, if you notice it, you can increase the font size. So this is basically making it easy for people who want to read it in a bigger font size. And you can just look for the grammatical issues that you can want to resolve, and you can just start playing it off. So mainly targeted towards disabled users, or even like I'm not disabled, but I would like to see the font size in a better fashion if I want to read something. So that is something to keep in mind. So now you can enable accessibility in your content that you are using, and always make sure to include those users when you are designing solutions. So AI provides you that capability to include those users also. So then when to use the Azure Applied AI Services, and what is the reason Microsoft now segregated some of these services from originally they were putting everything under the cognitive services stack, right? Some of these services you would have noticed they were sitting in cognitive services. Azure Cognitive Search was sitting as a standalone of its thing. So now where does this Azure Applied AI Services come from? So Azure Applied AI Services, they solve most of the common challenges with businesses are currently facing. So you talk about processing documents, you talk about like scaling your customer service, you want to search for documents within your proprietary archives, you want to analyze the content of different types, and you want to create accessible experience. So all these things can be achieved without having any AI experience. Your development team can leverage these solutions, integrate with your applications, and pretty much like they can start using it. So if I want to walk you through right from the bottom here, you have got, if you want to build custom algorithm and data for your data scientists, you have to go with Azure Machine Learning. Of course, your models will be like you can use automated machine learning, or you can use the machine learning UI in order to build your machine learning models. Or of course, you can hand code it using Python. You create with the notebooks, you can just create your models. The next layer is custom scenario for developers. Like you have some custom scenarios where a classic example is like I have to detect something from an image. And one of the thing we were doing was like an insurance company. They want to ask their clients to send images of the accident, like if they had a vehicle accident, send the images, different images of the vehicle. And what they can do is they can scan for the mailbox and look for only images that has got a vehicle in there. There is no vehicle in there, there is no point in storing the images. So they can automate that type of process using Azure Cognitive Services. And those are the scenarios, the custom scenarios that we were talking about. Then the next layer where you have the Azure Applied AI Services is more targeted to specific scenarios. I have forms, I have to scan that. I have got to do an enterprise search engine using Azure Cognitive Search. I want to enable accessibility of the textbooks or things that I'm providing, and I want to include Azure Immersive Reader for that. I want to enhance the customer experience in order to provide a better service for my customers. You can include your Azure chatbot, like a bot service to create your chatbots. Metrics Advisor, I think we talked about enough of that in detail. If you are new to Metrics Advisor, I would definitely recommend you to jump onto the Azure portal. So I'll try if when you get an issue with any of the Azure service, go and check the Metrics Advisor and the information that it provides. Pretty much you can do root cause analysis using the information that you get from Metrics Analyzer. The Azure Video Analyzer, as I mentioned, a lot of organizations like they record these videos and they want to analyze these videos and look for certain information or occurrences of these information. So whole heap of organizations now looking at video as a mechanism. And I think you would have seen like the number of videos that are getting generated these days is far and far more increasing. So if I want to do that, I can just analyze collection of videos and say like, okay, bring me a classic example I would say is which I always struggled. Okay, so to give you an example, like I attend Microsoft run these build Ignite conferences and things, right? So there will be a lot of videos available on channel 9, or you can download them and hold. And some of the videos titles, or they will be like a breakout session 1, breakout session 2 and things. So with Video Analyzer, I can easily classify those videos based on the different topics, and that will help me to automate and group the videos quite easily. So that's another use case where Video Analyzer can be powerful too. So these are some of the examples like where you can use the Azure AI, Applied AI Services, and how they are segregated now from the Azure Cognitive Services. The reason why they are segregated because they are actually used to solve a specific problem, while your cognitive services is much more wider. So you can use them to solve any of the custom problems as you are looking for in your organization. So these are some of the references, like these are the different Azure Applied AI services that I have been talking about in this entire session. So you have your bot service, forms recognizer, cognitive search, metrics advisor, video analyzer, and immersive reader. And there is another thing which I will also talk to you about is, let me quickly get this URL for you. So what I'm going to showcase it to you is a list of APIs. So some of the cognitive services APIs or the form recognizers, how do you integrate to that? So Microsoft have published the APIs, and you have got better way of just using those APIs and having them. So I'll just quickly show you like how can you just reach out to those APIs. Just bear with me for a sec. So these APIs are really handy because they provide you the entire API reference and pretty much like a documentation. So this is a classic example. So this is the cognitive services. You have the entire API documentation. Let me go back here. The API reference documentation Microsoft have provided for you. So you can just look at the different versions that you want to just play with. So here I have got a dev portal, and which has got a whole heap of API documentation that you can discuss and go through, especially when it comes to cognitive services. And yeah, computer vision API, everything like including forms API, forms recognizer APIs, and which region it is available, and what are the endpoints that are exposed as part of these API. So you can easily find out these things quite easily, and you can put the subscription keys and whatever the input types that you have to pass. So this is another one I would say you can use it in order to practice how do you connect to the different APIs to get the information. In terms of cognitive search, use the example that I gave you, the JFK one, that will help showcase to you like how can you build a enterprise search like that. And of course the bot, bot framework composer tool. So download it, it's a free tool which you can download and you can start building your chatbots quite easily. And with that note, I think pretty much that's what I wanted to cover in today's session, and a quick introduction about the different applied AI services, how it is different from the cognitive services stack we have got. These are services now Microsoft have categorized, and they started grouping them and say like, okay, these are services that will solve a specific problem, where cognitive services are services that you can use it to solve some custom problems that you have in your organization. Again, watch this space, the specific problems that they are trying to address. There may be new services added to the Azure AI applied AI services category. So keep watching this space. And these are the 6 services now we have got in this category, but there will be more added in the future. With that note, I want to say thank you for the sponsors as well as the organizers of this event for providing me the opportunity to share my knowledge about the different Azure Applied AI services. And I'm happy to now take up any questions that anyone has got regarding this space or anything in general about AI.
Thank you so much, Anupama, for that insightful session. Yeah, as you said, let's proceed with the Q&A session now. And
Sure.
a kind reminder to the audience to raise your questions if you haven't done already. I see one question so far. It says, how does applied AI services differ from Azure Cognitive Services? Is it the new approach to Azure Cognitive Services?
Not really. So as I mentioned before, I think I had this specifically on this slide. So cognitive services, what they are doing is you can take any of this vision language to solve different business problems, right? While this is like you can't use forms recognizer to do more than extracting data from forms. So that is more specific, right? So these are targeting more specific scenarios, while the other Azure Cognitive Services, you can customize it and use it for different custom business scenarios. So that is what. So video analyzer can't do anything other than analyzing videos. Okay. But vision, I can use it in multiple ways. A classic example I can give you from a business scenario perspective is we had a client in a utilities company. So they used to go and get the meter reading in a manual process. So someone goes to the customer's house, they look at the meter, they record the reading and come. But what we started noticing is like a lot of the readings are not coming. So we were using prediction like, oh, okay, what was the last month reading? Apply the same thing, which was not bringing in the right information. A lot of toing and froing with the customer happens in that scenario. So what now they made a solution is ask the customer to take a photo, upload that photo. Then what they did is with the combination of custom vision and computer vision, they were able to identify whether the image has got the specific meter that they were looking for. And then with the OCR capability in computer vision, they extracted the meter reading and pushed it into and saved it into the application. So if you look at here, this is a specific business problem, right? And you are using a combination of multiple services from cognitive services stack to solve this problem. And that's what I talked about custom scenario. While specific scenario, extracting data out of a form, building a chatbot, analyzing video analyzing data out of the video. This is what those services can do, the specific thing that it can do. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it seems like we don't have any more questions.
Good.
Yeah,
no problem.
And I want to thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions post this session, you can always reach out to me and I will share the slides with the organizers so that you will be able to just reach out to me.
Thank you, Anupama. And thank you very much for your informative session again. And also, we are honored to have you with us today. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join with us today. So yeah, thanks.